How smart we were to send Viking first to look around. Harry Protagonist, Brain Drainer, by Richard Wilson. Harry Protagonist, space-age entrepreneur, had been planning the project since the Gus Grissom shot. The idea was splendidly simple: to let everyone in the United States participate personally when the first Americans landed on Mars. Harry Protagonist promised something special. Not the vicarious sort of participation people had when they listened to delayed recordings of an astronaut telling about fireflies in space, or watched a mock-up clock ticking off the minutes since blastoff. Harry promised full audience participation, a living link between the space pioneers and those lucky enough to have joined his U Astronaut Club. What Harry was selling was an intimate connection with the mind of one of the 4 astronauts participating in Project Long Leap. He offered utter identification with one of the first people to set foot on Mars. This, historically comparable to the first footfall by Columbus in the Western Hemisphere, would cost a mere $10, $8.75 on the prepayment plan to those who sent their checks at once, saving billing fees. Harry, a former senior editor at Life magazine, knew which executive he had to deal with at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration to get exclusive brain rights to the astronauts. It cost Harry a mere $50 million, payable on the launching of the 4-man spaceship. The 4 Mars-bound astronauts were George Lincoln, John F. Adams, Dwight D. Roosevelt, and Thomas Alva Wright. By an amazing coincidence, ethnics-wise, the 4 were a Protestant, a Catholic, a Jew, and a Muslim who was also a Negro. Thus, they were 100% true blue Americans. Each had an IQ no lower than 130 and no higher than 146. The NASA director's IQ was 147. Each of the astronauts knew he might never return, but each also knew that if he did, he would be a hero, and a rich hero. His many pre-launch contracts with Harry Protagonist and others guaranteed him a fortune before his 30th birthday. Thus, for a fee of $10,000, payable on his return to Earth, each astronaut let himself be fitted with a sensor, which connected his thoughts not only to NASA's electronic ear, but also to Harry Protagonist's giant empathy installation at the U Astronaut Club. Virtually all Americans were hooked up to the Mars-bound hero astronauts. This was because Harry Protagonist had generously okayed a special rate of $1 per kid for schools, so that every child in every school that had electricity was connected, brain-wise, to the intrepid 4. Everybody got his choice of an astronaut, even the $1-apiece kids. This meant that when he paid his buck or his $10, he picked one of the 4 astronauts for his very own to share history with. Harry Protagonist guaranteed everybody that what the astronaut saw, felt, and thought, he would see, feel, and think from liftoff on Earth to landfall on Mars. You can see what's coming, can't you? I will tell you anyway. It will appeal to your sense of irony. What happened was that the Martians pranged the astronauts as they were coming in for a landing. They, the Martians, got them, the astronauts, in their sights and clobbered them like sitting ducks. It was too bad, but, as the British would put it, and later did, there it was. Nobody had figured on there being Martians, let alone bad Martians. In the ordinary course of things, we'd have lost only 4 astronauts. But, because of Harry Protagonist's grand scheme, 174,362,589 people who had been hooked up, mind-wise, to the 4 astronauts also perished. It was a real brain drain. Fortunately, for Harry Protagonist, all of the 170 million odd had paid in advance, and he himself, instinctively distrustful of his own schemes, hadn't been hooked up to any of the astronauts. He became a rather sad and lonely billionaire, but not for long. The overpopulated British, attracted by the American vacuum, came down by way of Canada to take over the country, and applied their confiscatory taxes to the Queen's new subject, Harry Protagonist. The British explained that they had acted in the highest tradition of the Anglo-American alliance, and from the purest motive possible, to keep the Russians out. There wasn't anything anybody was able to do about it. I mean, there it was.